It was raining hard in the streets of Chicago. The wind was cold. The sky was dark. I had just finished my night shift and wanted to get home. My feet were tired. My coat was wet. I turned the corner and saw someone sitting by the wall. At first, I didn't look closely. I thought he was just another man on the street. But then I saw his face. My heart stopped. It was Daniel. My name is Clara. I am 30 years old. I work as a night cleaner at a hotel in downtown Chicago. Life hasn't been easy. I live alone in a small apartment. I don't have many friends. I stopped trusting people a long time ago. And that's because of him. Daniel was my boyfriend 3 years ago. I loved him. I gave him everything. We lived together for almost 4 years. We talked about getting married. I thought he was the one. But one day, he left. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't call. He just packed his things and walked away. I later found out he left me for someone else. He moved to another city with her. She had more money, a better job, a bigger house. He chose her over me, and I was left with nothing. I cried for weeks. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I felt like a fool. And now, 3 years later, there he was. Wet, cold, and sitting on the ground like a stranger. His hair was long and dirty. His clothes were torn. His face was thin. I stood still. I didn't know what to do. He looked up and saw me. I saw shock in his eyes. He tried to speak, but no words came. I wanted to walk away. I wanted to pretend I didn't see him, but something inside me stopped me. I took a deep breath and walked closer. "Daniel?" I asked. He nodded slowly. He looked weak. His lips were shaking. "What happened to you?" I asked. My voice was cold. I was angry, but I was also confused. "I lost everything," he said. "I have nowhere to go." His words hit me hard. I should have walked away. He broke me once. I didn't owe him anything, but I couldn't leave him like that. I looked at him again. His hands were red from the cold. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. "There's a small cafe across the street," I said. "Come. You can warm up." He followed me slowly. We didn't speak on the way. He looked tired and sick. I bought him a hot drink and some bread. He sat across from me. He didn't meet my eyes. He ate slowly. I watched him. "I'm sorry," he said after some time, "for everything, for leaving you." I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. He hurt me more than anyone ever did. But now he looked like a broken man. He told me he lost his job. The woman he left me for was gone. She left him after 1 year. He said he tried to find work, but nothing lasted. He moved from city to city. Now he had no place to sleep. No food. No one. I don't expect anything, he said. I just wanted to say thank you for this. He stood up. I thought he would walk out and disappear again, but I didn't let him. Wait, I said. There's a small animal shelter near my house. They always need help. You won't get much, but they feed volunteers and pay a little. I can ask them if you can join. Daniel looked surprised. You would do that for me? I don't know why, I said. But maybe because I know how it feels to be left with nothing. The next day, I talked to the woman at the shelter. She said yes. They needed help with cleaning and feeding. Daniel started that same afternoon. I told him to show up on time and do the work. He didn't argue. He listened. I went to the shelter 2 days later. I wanted to see if he was still there. I saw him in the back. He was cleaning cages. His face was red with sweat. His clothes were still old, but he looked stronger. He didn't see me, but I saw something different in him. He wasn't the man who walked away. He wasn't smiling or charming like before. He looked quiet, tired, careful. That evening, I brought him a warm coat and clean socks. I didn't say anything when I gave them to him. He took them and looked at me. Thank you, he said. His voice was soft. It gets cold at night, I said. I'm trying, he said. I want to fix my life. You can start by being honest and working hard, I said. And he did. Every day he went to the shelter. He helped with animals. He washed floors. He didn't ask for anything. He worked. He tried. I watched from a distance. But one night, something terrible happened. I was walking home from the store. I had bags in my hands. I passed a narrow street and heard loud voices. I stopped. I heard someone shout, "Give us your money!" I walked closer and looked in. I saw 2 men. One of them pushed someone to the ground. The man on the ground was Daniel. I dropped my bags and ran in. "Leave him alone!" I screamed. The men looked at me. "This is not your business," one of them said. "He has nothing," I shouted. "Just go!" One of the men pulled something from his pocket. I think it was a knife. My hands were shaking, but I didn't move. Then I picked up a glass bottle near my foot. I raised it. "I called the police!" I yelled. "They are on their way!" The 2 men ran. My hands were still shaking. I dropped the bottle. I went to Daniel. He was on the ground, holding his side. He was bleeding. "Come," I said. "We need to go." I took him to a small clinic. The cut wasn't deep. The nurse cleaned it and gave him a bandage. I paid for the visit. He tried to stop me, but I didn't listen. We walked home in silence. "Why did you help me?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "But I couldn't let them hurt you." "I don't deserve it," he said. "No," I said. "You don't. But maybe I do." He looked at me. "What do you mean?" I couldn't save myself back then, I said. Maybe saving you helps me now. Daniel stayed on my couch that night. He didn't ask. I didn't offer. It just happened. His face looked tired. His body was weak. After the clinic, I knew he couldn't sleep outside again. I gave him a blanket and some tea. He didn't speak much. He said thank you and then lay down. I watched him for a moment. His eyes closed fast. Soon, I heard soft breathing. I went to my room and sat on the bed. My hands were still cold. My heart was still beating fast. What just happened? Why did I help him? Why did I bring him here? I looked at the door. Part of me wanted to lock it, but another part of me said no. I trusted him once. He broke that trust, but this time felt different. The next morning, I made toast and eggs. I left a plate for him on the table. I got ready for work. Before I left, I looked at him again. He was still sleeping. His face looked peaceful. That day at work, I was quiet. I didn't talk much. I kept thinking about Daniel. What was I doing? Was I crazy? He left me once. What if he hurt me again? But then I remembered his face when the men attacked him. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just took the pain. He looked small. He looked scared. When I came home that evening, Daniel was sitting on the sofa. He had cleaned the dishes. He also folded the blanket. "I hope it's okay," he said. I wanted to help. I nodded. "Thanks." He stood up. "I should go. I don't want to cause trouble." I looked at the window. It was raining again. The wind was loud. "You can stay tonight," I said. "But just tonight." He didn't argue. "Okay." He slept on the couch for 4 more nights. Every day he woke up early. He went to the animal shelter. He came back on time. He didn't ask for anything. We didn't talk much, but the silence was not heavy. It felt calm. One evening, I saw him play with a small dog at the shelter. The dog had only 3 legs. It was weak and slow, but Daniel was smiling. He looked happy. I stood there and watched. For the first time in years, I saw something warm in him. Later that night, we sat at the kitchen table. We shared dinner. I had made soup. "This is nice," he said. "It reminds me of the old times." I didn't smile. "The old times were not nice in the end." He looked down. "You're right." "Why did you leave?" I asked. "Really?" He took a deep breath. "I felt scared. You were always strong. I felt small beside you. I met someone else. She made me feel important." I looked at him. "So you left because I was strong?" "I thought I didn't deserve you," he said. "Now I see that I was just weak." I didn't know what to say. His words were honest, simple, and they hurt. That night I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking, Maybe I never really knew Daniel, or maybe he had changed. A few days later, something strange happened. 2 men came to the shelter. I had never seen them before. They looked rough. They didn't pet the animals. They just stood at the door and looked around. I watched them closely. One of the men asked for Daniel. "Why?" I asked. "Just old friends," he said. But something felt wrong. I told Daniel about it that night. He went quiet. "I know who they are," he said. "I owe them money." "What kind of money?" I asked. "Not good money," he said. "I borrowed from them when I was in trouble." "Will they hurt you?" "They might," he said, "but I will handle it. Do you have the money?" He laughed a little. "If I did, I wouldn't be sleeping on your sofa." I felt cold. This was not just a story anymore. This was danger. Real danger. "You should go to the police," I said. "They don't care," he said. "I'm not important." I looked at him. I felt fear, but also something else. I didn't want him to get hurt. The next morning, I went to the bank. I took out the little savings I had. It wasn't much, just enough to pay 1 month of rent and bills. But I had a plan. That evening, I gave the envelope to Daniel. "What is this?" he asked. "Money," I said. "Not much, but maybe enough to make them stop." His face went white. "Clara, no. I can't take this." "You have to," I said. "They will hurt you." He pushed it back toward me. "You don't owe me anything. You should hate me." "I did," I said. "But hate doesn't help. I saw you on the street. I saw you bleeding. And I couldn't walk away." He sat down. He looked at the floor. He took a long breath. "I will pay you back," he said. "Just stay safe," I said. That night, he left. I didn't know where he went. I stayed up, waiting. I looked at the clock again and again. Hours passed. I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I heard a soft knock at the door. I ran to open it. Daniel stood there. His shirt was torn. His lip was cut. But he was alive. "They took the money," he said. "And they left." I pulled him inside. I didn't speak. I didn't ask questions. I just gave him water and helped him sit down. He looked at me with tired eyes. "You didn't have to save me," he said. "I know," I said. "But I did." Daniel stayed with me for 2 more weeks. He slept on the couch. I gave him food. He cleaned the house when I worked. He helped at the shelter. He walked Lulu in the mornings. We didn't speak much. We lived like 2 quiet people under one roof. I didn't ask questions. He didn't make promises. It was simple, for a while. But in my heart, it was not simple. Each day I felt something build inside me. A mix of feelings I couldn't explain. Part of me still remembered the pain, the empty apartment, the tears at night, the fear of being forgotten. But another part saw something new, a man who now spoke softly, who took small steps, who carried his past on his back but didn't run anymore. Sometimes I watched him from the kitchen. He would sit on the floor and play with Lulu. She would place her paw on his leg. He would smile, the way someone does when they feel safe. It was not the smile he had years ago, full of pride and charm. This one was quiet, careful, real. One morning, I woke up early. The sun was not up yet. The house was still. I sat at the window and watched the street. I thought about my life, all the time I spent feeling broken, all the nights I cried and asked myself what I did wrong. And now, that same man who walked away was sleeping on my couch. It felt like a strange dream, but I knew it was not a dream. It was a choice. I let him in. I gave him space. I gave him help. Not because I still loved him, not because I wanted him back, but because I needed to face the pain and do something different. Most people don't understand what it means to forgive someone who hurt you. They think it means forgetting or going back to how things were, but it's not that. For me, it was about letting go of the anger. It was about looking at the person who broke me and saying, I am not you. I will not become cold. I will not turn my back. I will help, even when it hurts. Later that week, Daniel came home from the shelter with a paper in his hand. I saw the look on his face and knew something had changed. I got the job, he said, in another town. It's at a shelter. They need someone full-time. It comes with a small room and food. It's not much, but it's mine. I nodded. I said, That's good. He stood still. His hands were in his pockets. I leave in 4 days. We didn't talk more that night. I went to my room. He stayed in the living room. I lay on my bed and looked at the ceiling. I didn't cry, but my chest felt heavy. The next few days moved slowly. He packed his things, which were not many. He cleaned the kitchen more than usual. He fixed a broken chair. He washed all his clothes. He even left a small food bag for Lulu. He didn't say much to me, and I didn't ask much, but I knew he was waiting for something. Maybe for me to say, stay. But I didn't. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew he had to leave. He needed to rebuild his life on his own. I had opened the door, but it was time for him to walk through it alone. On the last morning, I made coffee. He sat across from me. The sunlight came through the window. Lulu lay beside his feet. Thank you, he said, for everything. I nodded. Take care of yourself. I will, he said. I don't know what I would have done without you. You would have found a way, I said. You're stronger than you think. I was never strong before, he said. But you gave me a chance. No one ever did that before. I didn't answer. There was nothing more to say. He picked up his bag. It was light. He walked to the door. He looked around one last time. "All right," he said. "If you want," I replied. Then he was gone. I stood at the window and watched him walk away. He didn't look back. I didn't wave. It was a quiet goodbye. After he left, the house felt different. Not empty, just calm. I cleaned the dishes. I fed Lulu. I went to work, but I carried a strange feeling inside me. It was not sadness. It was not joy. It was something in between. I had done something hard, something most people would never do. I faced the person who caused me the most pain, and I helped him. I gave him food. I gave him shelter. I gave him peace. And then I let him go. Weeks passed. I didn't hear from Daniel. I didn't wait for a letter. I didn't look for news. I focused on myself. I took more shifts. I started saving again. I even joined a yoga class. I didn't talk much, but I showed up. I tried. One afternoon, I came home and found something in the mailbox. A small envelope with no return address. I opened it. Inside was a letter. It was from Daniel. He wrote that he was doing well. The shelter gave him a key to a small room. It had a bed, a chair, and a desk. He worked 6 days a week. He fed dogs, cleaned cages, and gave walks. He said the work was hard but good. He also wrote that he saved his first paycheck. He wanted to send it to me, but he didn't. "This is not about money," he wrote. "This is about learning to stand." He ended the letter with these words: "You didn't only save my body, you saved my soul. You reminded me that good people still exist. You showed me that even after pain, there is still light. I don't know what I mean to you now, but I will never forget what you did. One day, I hope I can give someone else the same help. Because of you, I believe it's possible." I held the letter close. I didn't cry, but I felt something deep move inside me. That night, I sat outside with Lulu. The air was cool. The sky was soft. I looked at the city lights and thought about my story. I was once broken. I was once left behind. I had pain, anger, fear, but I chose something better. I chose to forgive. I chose to protect. I chose to help. And in doing that, I helped myself too. Daniel didn't become the man I wanted him to be back then, but he became someone better. He became a man who looked at pain and didn't run. And I became a woman who could face the past and still choose kindness. That is not weakness. That is courage. That is strength. And that is love. Not romantic love, not perfect love, but love that lives in quiet actions and brave hearts. My name is Hannah. I am 29 years old. 2 years ago, I moved to another country. It was not an easy choice. I had never left my home city before. I lived there my whole life. I knew the streets. I knew the people. I knew the language. But something inside me said, "It is time to grow." I wanted more. I wanted something new. I remember the day I bought my plane ticket. My hands were shaking. I stood in my small kitchen. The sun came through the window. I looked at the screen. "Flight to Toronto," it said. I clicked buy. I looked around my apartment. It was quiet. I was alone. But I smiled. I felt ready. I felt brave. I did not have a big plan. I only had one suitcase and a few savings. My English was not very strong. I was scared I would not understand people. I did not know how to get a place to live. I did not know anyone in Toronto. But I told myself, you can learn, you can try. My first night in Toronto was cold. The sky was gray. I stayed in a small room I found online. It was near a train station. I looked out the window. I saw people walking fast. I heard the sound of cars. It all felt new. I was far from home, but I was not sad. I was curious. The next morning, I went out early. I wore my coat and scarf. I held a small map in my hand. I walked slowly. I looked at signs. I tried to read them. Some words I did not understand. I wrote them in my phone to learn later. I went to a small cafe and bought tea. I watched people talk. I listened. I wanted to hear how they spoke English. I listened carefully. That afternoon, I went to the city library. It was warm inside. I found books with easy English. I sat and read. I looked at new words. I said them in my mind. One of the workers there saw me reading. Her name was Sarah. She smiled at me and asked, "Do you need help?" I said, "I want to learn English." She gave me a small paper with class times. "You can join," she said. I thanked her. That moment gave me hope. The next week, I started the free English class. It was full of people from other countries. A woman from Egypt sat next to me. Her name was Noor. She had kind eyes. She spoke slowly and clearly. We became friends. We helped each other. Sometimes we went for walks after class. We talked in English. It was hard sometimes, but we tried. In the evenings, I used a simple app to practice more. I listened to short English stories. I wrote down sentences. I repeated them out loud. I made mistakes, but I kept going. I told myself, this is how I grow. I never said, it is too hard. I said, it is new. After 2 months, I looked for small jobs online. I found one in a community kitchen. They helped older people and students. They needed someone to help serve food and clean tables. I sent a message to the team. I told them I was learning English, but I was hardworking. I got a reply. They asked me to come meet them. I was nervous before the meeting. I wore a clean shirt and jeans. I practiced what I would say. When I arrived, I saw a woman at the door. She smiled and said, "Hi, I'm Claire." I smiled back and said, "Hello. My name is Hannah. I want to help here." We sat at a table. She asked me a few simple questions. I tried my best to answer. She looked happy. She said, "Let's try for 1 week. If it goes well, we can talk again." I started the next day. It was busy. People came in hungry. I filled water glasses. I cleaned tables. I smiled and said, "Hello," to everyone. I watched how others talked. I listened and learned. I wrote new words on small papers in my pocket. Later, I searched the meaning. One evening, an old man at the kitchen said, "You are doing a great job." I said, "Thank you." That was all, but it meant a lot. I went home that night feeling proud. I was doing something useful. I was not just learning words. I was helping people. After a few weeks, Claire said, "You are part of the team now." I smiled wide. It felt good to hear that. It was not a big job, but it gave me more than money. It gave me a place. A small place in this big new city. My days became full. I went to English class in the morning. I worked in the kitchen in the afternoon. I studied at home in the evening. I was tired, but happy. I was learning something every day. One Sunday, Nora and I went to a park. We sat on a bench with coffee. She said, "You are doing well, Hannah." I said, "Thank you, Nor. You helped me too." We looked at the trees. The leaves were red and yellow. The sky was blue. I said, "I feel different now. I feel like this is home." She smiled. That night, I sat in my room and thought. I remembered the day I bought my ticket. I was scared. But now, I was here. I had friends. I had a routine. I was learning. I was stronger than I thought. Still, I had more to do. My English was better, but not perfect. I wanted to keep growing. I wanted to find new chances. But I was not afraid. Not anymore. I had taken the first step. That was the hardest part. And now I was ready for more. Winter came fast in Toronto. The days became short. The nights were long and cold. But I did not feel alone. I had a coat, boots, and gloves now. I had new habits. I walked to class even when it snowed. I liked watching the snow fall. Everything looked quiet and soft. At the community kitchen, we served hot soup and bread. People came in with red noses and cold hands. We smiled and gave them warm food. I learned how to speak more in English. "Would you like tea or coffee?" I asked. "Do you want more soup?" "Have a nice day," I said. These lines many times, and each time they felt easier. One morning, Claire gave me a paper. "We are starting a small training program," she said. "It is for people who want to learn more." I read the paper. It said we would learn how to help manage food, keep things safe, and talk to people in English. "Do you want to join?" she asked. I said yes. The training started the next week. It was not easy. We learned about safety, food rules, and basic service words. There were tests. I studied every evening. I wrote words in my notebook. I asked Noor to help me understand. We met at the library and read the notes together. After 4 weeks, I passed the test. Claire smiled and gave me a small card. "You finished your training," she said. I looked at the card. It had my name and a stamp on it. I felt proud. This was the first paper I earned in my new country. With that card, I could now help more at the kitchen. I served at the counter. I gave out food and took small notes. I answered simple questions. One day, a woman asked me, "How long have you lived in Toronto?" I said, "Almost 4 months." She said, "You speak well?" I smiled and said, "I try every day." That small moment stayed in my heart. Outside work, I started doing something new. I joined a free walking group in my area. Every Saturday, we met at a park and walked together. The leader's name was Helen. She was friendly and full of energy. She said, "Walking is not just for health. It's also for meeting people." We walked in groups of 10 or 12. Some people talked a lot. Some walked quietly. I liked listening. I learned new words. One woman talked about books. Another one talked about her dog. Sometimes I said, "Oh, I understand," or "That's nice." It helped me feel more confident. One morning after the walk, Helen said, "Would you like to help with the group?" I was surprised. She said, "You can help greet people. You can help new walkers feel welcome." I said yes. It felt good to be trusted again. Every Saturday, I stood near the park gate. I smiled and said, "Hello. Are you new to the group?" I helped people find their place. Some asked, "Where are you from?" I said, "I came from England." Then they asked, "Why did you move?" I always answered, "I wanted a new life. I wanted to grow." They said, "That's brave." And I thought, yes, it is. Spring came slowly. The snow melted. The air became warm. Small flowers grew near the sidewalk. I started to notice things. I could read signs more easily. I could speak longer sentences. I could write small texts in English without using a translator. One day in class, our teacher gave us a short story to read. It was about a woman who opened a small shop in a new country. She worked hard. She learned the language. She helped others. When I finished reading, I thought, this sounds like me. I smiled quietly. After class, Noor and I walked to the bus stop. "Do you think we can do something big one day?" she asked. I said, Yes. Maybe not fast, but step by step. She looked at me. You are different now, she said. You speak better. You look stronger. I laughed. Maybe I am stronger. Later that month, I got an email from the city website. It said there was a job fair near my area. Meet local groups, find small jobs, and practice English, it said. I told Claire. She said, You should go. Take your papers with you. Talk to people. The job fair was in a big hall. Many people were there. Some were like me, new to the country. Some spoke English well. I walked around and looked at the tables. One table had a sign, Local Food Team, looking for helpers. I walked closer. A man at the table smiled. Hi, he said. Are you looking for work? I said, Yes. I help at a kitchen now. I also finished training. I showed him my card. He looked at it and said, That's great. We have some part-time work. Would you like to try it? I said yes. A few days later, I got a message from them. They invited me for a short meeting. I went there on a Wednesday morning. I wore my clean shirt again. I brought my small folder with papers. The manager was kind. She asked, Can you work twice a week? I said, Yes. I'm ready. I started the next week. This kitchen was a little bigger. There were more people. Some were workers. Some were volunteers. I helped clean vegetables, pack boxes, and write short notes. They liked that I listened carefully. They said, You follow rules well. Now I had 2 small jobs. I worked at the first kitchen 2 days, and the second one 3 days. I also still went to English class twice a week. My days were full, but I liked it. I learned every day. I earned a little money. I used it for rent, food, and sometimes something special, like flowers or a warm drink. One evening, I sat in the small park near my building. The sky was pink. I looked around and felt something new. I felt peace. I was not rich. I was not perfect. But I was not lost anymore. I was not afraid. I took out my phone and opened a simple English news app. I read about people who started with little and made something big. I thought, I can try too. I searched for online courses. I found one about food safety. It had easy English. I clicked Start. For the next 6 weeks, I studied online every evening. I watched short videos. I answered questions. I read the rules again and again. At the end, I took the final test. I passed. I downloaded the certificate. I printed it at the library. I held it in my hand. I smiled. This was my second paper in this country. Claire saw it the next week. She said, You can do more now. You can help lead small teams. I felt excited. She gave me more tasks. I showed new helpers how to set tables. I taught them small safety steps. I used simple English. I spoke slowly and clearly. I remembered when I was new. I wanted them to feel welcome. One day, a young woman joined the team. Her name was Emily. She came from another country too. She said, "I don't speak English well." I smiled and said, "It's okay. I understand. I was like you." I helped her every day. I said simple things like, "This is soap. Wash here. Dry with this." She learned fast. One afternoon she said, "Thank you for helping me." I felt happy. I was now the helper, not just the one who needed help. Summer came. The city felt alive. Music played on the streets. People ate outside. I walked more. I spoke more. I felt more at home. One Saturday, Nora and I sat in a small cafe. She said, "Can you believe it? We have been here 1 year." I said, "Yes. And so much has changed." We smiled at each other. That night I went home and made a list. Not a list of dreams, just a list of things I had done. Joined English class. Started 2 jobs. Made friends. Helped others. Took 2 courses. Led a small team. Walked in a group. Learned how to live in a new city. I read the list again. My eyes filled with tears, but they were happy ones. Not because I was sad, but because I was proud. I came with nothing but hope. Now, I had skills, papers, friends, and a place. A real place in this new world. And I was just getting started. One day in early autumn, I got a phone call from a number I didn't know. I answered carefully. "Hello?" A woman's voice replied, "Hi, is this Hannah?" I said yes. She told me her name was Laura. She worked at a local training group for new workers. She said, "Claire gave me your name. We are looking for people who have experience and want to grow. Would you like to meet and talk?" I felt nervous, but I said yes. The meeting was in a small building near the library. Laura was young and kind. She smiled a lot. She asked me about my time in the kitchens. I told her how I started, how I learned, and how I helped others now. She said, "We are starting a new food project. It's small, but we want someone like you to help." I asked, "What do I need to do?" She said, "Help plan, help teach, and help grow it." That night, I sat at home and thought. I looked around my little room. I remembered my first days in the city. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know anyone. Now someone wanted me to lead something. I whispered to myself, "You can try." I started with Laura's team the next week. It was just once a week, but it was different. We met in a bright room with a whiteboard and chairs. We talked about food ideas for the community. We looked at what people needed. We planned how to help. I shared ideas. I drew small maps. I used my own words. People listened. One of the other women said, "You explain things clearly." I smiled and said, "I learned to speak slow and simple." She laughed. "That's the best way." The project grew fast. We made small boxes of healthy food for families. We worked with schools and churches. I helped with the list. I helped new people understand the rules. I showed them where to stand and how to pack. One afternoon, Laura said, "You're not just part of the team. You're a leader now." I didn't know what to say. My hands felt warm. I looked down and said, "Thank you." At night, I told Noor everything. She smiled. "I told you," she said. Step by step. We sat at my table with tea. I looked at her and said, "What's your next step?" She laughed. "Maybe something like you. Something that gives me purpose." We were not just students anymore. We were women with new lives. By the end of the year, I had 3 roles. I worked part-time at the 2 kitchens. I worked once a week at the new project. I also helped lead a few food safety talks. It wasn't a full-time job, but I felt full inside. I felt useful. I felt ready for more. I started saving a little money each month. I didn't spend much. I cooked at home. I bought only what I needed. I told myself, each dollar is a step to your next door. I wanted to one day take a short course at the college. It was about food and community service. It cost money, but I was getting closer. That winter, something special happened. I was invited to speak at the same English school I first joined. They asked me to talk to new students. "Just tell your story," the teacher said. "They need to hear someone like them." I stood in front of the class. My hands shook a little. I saw the eyes of 10 new people. They were quiet. They looked nervous. I smiled. I said, "My name is Hannah. I moved here 2 years ago. My English was not strong. I didn't know anyone. I was scared, but I started small. And now I work, I lead, I teach. You can do it too." When I finished, one woman raised her hand. She asked, "Was it very hard?" I said, "Yes, but it was possible." That evening, as I walked home, snowflakes fell slowly from the sky. I remembered my first night in the city. I had stood at the window and watched the cars. That girl was scared, but she didn't stop. She walked forward. Now I was not afraid of the snow. I liked how it touched the streets and made them white. I felt strong. In the spring, I applied for that short college course. I used the money I had saved. I sent my name, my papers, and a small letter. A few weeks later, I got the reply. I was accepted. I cried happy tears that night. The course was every Saturday for 3 months. The English was not too hard. I took notes. I asked questions. I stayed after class to learn more. I met people with the same dream. We wanted to grow, to help, and to build something real. After I finished, they gave me a small certificate. It had my name. It had the date. I held it in both hands. It was my third paper in this country. But this one said something bigger. I belong here. Months passed. I still worked in the kitchens. I still helped with the food project. But now, something had changed. I walked taller. I spoke louder. I smiled more. Sometimes people asked me, "Do you miss your old home?" I said, "Yes, I do." But I also said, "This is home too now." I built a new life here, a life with meaning, a life with people who cared, a life with work that made me proud. One Sunday, I stood at the same park gate where I used to welcome new walkers. The sun was out. The grass was green. I saw a woman standing alone. She looked lost. I walked up to her and said, "Hi, are you new here?" She nodded. "Yes, I just moved here last week." I smiled. "Welcome. You are not alone.